Artificial intelligence, or AI, is so versatile that it can be used to solve many of the most difficult problems on Earth. And yes, that includes cyber risks and cyber crimes. With today's ever-evolving cyber attacks, AI is also being used to defeat the bad guys in cyberspace. Let's learn more about this from Darktrace Director for Philippines and Indonesia, Ms. Kristine Maglaque.
Hello, everyone. Very delighted to be here. I'm Kristine, Regional Director for Darktrace, leading the ASEAN emerging market. I've been in the industry space for over 15 years now, mainly focusing on enterprise application as well as research advisory, having previously worked with Workday and Gartner. Over the next 20 minutes, I hope to touch on some of the key drivers for adopting AI as a key part of a modern and robust cyber defense, and how AI technology is currently being leveraged by security teams in the real world. I'm representing Darktrace, a cybersecurity company that, at its heart, is really a mathematics company. Our R&D center in Cambridge, UK, has over 30 PhDs, and since the company was founded in 2013, the same group of individuals has been in charge of making major advancements in self-learning AI for cybersecurity. Darktrace is also a pioneer in autonomous response technology, with more than 1,500 employees protecting over 5,000 organizations across all industry verticals. Darktrace is the largest self-learning AI company in the market today. Recently, we have been listed in the London Stock Exchange. It is definitely a fantastic milestone for our organization and a good confirmation of the work and recognition that Darktrace has put forth so far. There is a general recognition that the speed and sophistication of cyber threats is increasing, and a sense of inevitability that attackers will continue to increase and leverage AI techniques to augment their attacks, as well as bolster their stealth, speed, and effectiveness. Last year, the World Economic Forum noted that the first generation of AI-enabled offensive cyber tools were already emerging. While still it's in infancy, defenders or most organizations should be mindful and wary of this. Both MIT Technology Review and Forrester reported that a large number of security professionals have started preparing for AI-driven attacks, and they anticipate that this will become mainstream in the not-so-distant future. From a general threat landscape perspective, these are some of the key reasons organizations or defenders are looking at new ways to protecting their digital estate. The pandemic, as well as the associated lockdowns, has necessitated for a drastic and sudden changes in the way that we work. Many of us are working from homes, creating gaps in the normal working day as compared to a usual 9 to 5. We now consume corporate services differently, having to connect to home Wi-Fi, adapting online collaboration tools, as well as SaaS tools. Of course, sophisticated attackers are taking advantage of this new, noisy, and borderless environment. Meanwhile, we are also seeing an increase in nation-state sponsored campaigns. These campaigns enable nation-states to pursue their objectives with an element of deniability, typically focusing infrastructure mainly grounded on the private sector, having a wider implication in the society. Lastly, there is an issue of trust. With the recent success of cyber attacks, the trust in the institutions that gather and secure our data are slowly being eroded. There is a long-term implication of these successful cyber attacks being linked to organizational names. Some of the recent examples are Toll, Lion, as well as JBS. At the same time, we all know that the digital environment is currently exploding with complexity, and it doesn't show any signs of slowing down. I'm mainly talking about the adoption of cloud and SaaS technology, video conferencing solution, as well as collaboration tools. In certain organizations, there is even a convergence of IT and OT networks. We're seeing the network border drop away to a hyper-connected, digitized, and internet-dependent environment. This complexity just poses risks to organizations. While this technology brings great benefits, as an example, increased productivity and support of more flexible working conditions for employees, they also leave security teams scrambled, making sure that they are upskilled on the correct implementation and security configuration, let alone detect and respond to threats in this modern digital environment with legacy tools. It is broadly accepted in security circles today that relying on retrospective approaches to threat detection, such as rules and signatures, are just too limited. At the minimum, they can only capture a subset of these security threats that we face, missing the more subtle and novel threats, which typically manage to sneak past this predefined goalposts. An example of which are 0 days or those low and slow attacks, which leave off the land and blend into authorized activity. From a practical perspective, detecting the threat in order to detect it is also labor intensive. It requires constant tuning and updating, and this simply cannot keep pace with both the evolving threat landscape as well as the digital environment. Another legacy issue is that most security solutions are siloed. It's typically focused on a single area of network, leaving gaps in coverage, language, as well as user preference. The breadcrumbs of an attack may be scattered across a user's laptop, internet access, Office 365 activity, but without the broader context of these threats, it is simply missed by point solutions. So now that we know that we cannot predict all modern cyber threats that we will encounter, and even if we could, an increasing number of them are moving at machine speed. It is just impossible for human security teams to respond quickly enough. Security in 2021 must be able to deal with the fast and the unpredictable. This means embracing the right technology to secure, enable, and protect the workforce. So you might be asking, how will AI help address these problems? Using AI, we can form a digital immune system for businesses. Like a human body, we expect the skin to keep a lot of the bad stuff out. But also, we need to accept that it is porous and it will eventually let threats inside. That is why we have an immune system to detect and respond to intrusions, biological or digital. It works from the inside out, expecting the threat will either find a way in or is already inside. Like the immune system, AI has no preconception of what the threat will look like. Rather, it focuses on learning itself. What is a part of me? What is normal? And is therefore able to detect intrusions based on these deviations from what understanding of normal is. As the digital environment evolves over time, so does the AI immune system. It is constantly learning and reevaluating in the light of new evidence. It does not need to stay across attackers' trends, but only it needs to continuously learn self and spot the attacker when they create a change in the environment. Given the speed of certain types of attacks, say for example, a ransomware, the ability to detect at machine speed is often insufficient. We definitely need to go further. We need the AI to also make an intelligent decision about the most minimally invasive and surgical action that can be taken to interrupt the threat in real time, thereby holding the attack at bay and buying time until the human teams can intervene. Even with slower moving threats, humans simply cannot keep up and work continuously 24 by 7. It is due to the volume and variety of the threats that hit our networks on a daily basis. We need to allow machines to make certain decisions and take certain actions. This action need to be autonomous, surgical, and proportionate to the perceived risk. Importantly, they must avoid impacting the normal, productive, and legitimate operations within the network as well as its users. This autonomous response technology has been deployed in over 1,200 companies worldwide since 2017. It is relied upon by numerous industries to prevent business disruption from cyber attacks. This is actually probably the most interesting aspect of where AI is being used to augment human teams. And it is the third major pillar of the Darktrace platform, the Cyber AI Analyst. This is a product of 3-year collaboration between mathematicians in our R&D lab and our global security analyst team to address the key challenge of cybersecurity skill shortage. What they did was they used supervised machine learning to study over 100 Darktrace threat analysts over a 3-year period, learning their trade path. When they come across particular kinds of anomalous behavior, how did they triage and investigate? What kind of a hypothesis did they make? How did they test them? What information did they draw on? And most importantly, what conclusions did they come to? This information was then distilled into what we call AI Analyst. It is a software which triages and investigates, as well as piecing together the anomalies the immune system is able to detect at machine speed 24 by 7. It automates a lot of level 1 and level 2 analyst workload. It also has the capability to produce a plain English summary of the incident and suggested next steps. It has the ability to pull together the technical details that an analyst would typically look for. What is the host, the domain name, user credential, connection details like ports, protocols, length, and time of day. This has been used by our customers for a few years now. And when we were at trial stage before, we found out that 40% of the time, the AI analyst did a better job. Most importantly, it was 92% quicker than the human. Furthermore, the AI analyst is constantly analyzing security incidents in light of new information and alerting as it arises. A recent addition to this part of the platform is that aside from the automatic investigations that are triggered by the immune system alerts, the security team now can also request AI analysts to conduct an investigation into anything they are concerned about. It could be a disgruntled liver or an anomalous device within their organization. What you're seeing in the screen right now is a snippet of a report that was generated entirely by AI. On the left-hand side, you are seeing a plain English summary describing how the immune system had detected a suspicious chain of connection, which might indicate a lateral movement from IT to OT environment. While it could be a legitimate administrator activity, it is unusual for the environment and consistent with attacker TTPs, hence worthy of a closer look. Next, on your right, you would see a technical detail of each connection and a graphical representation on the right showing the chain of events, connection, type, and timing. Note that no human was involved in pulling the underlying events or writing this report all together. Now I think we go to the more interesting part, which is really talking about real-world use cases. This use case is an interesting example of an AI detecting and investigating a compromised SaaS account at a global produce supplier. The threat actor successfully logged into a box account using stolen but legitimate credential, and then proceeded to download expense reports, invoices, and other financial documents. The threat actor also identified and tried to unlock a file that contains a list of passwords. Even though the employee whose credentials were stolen does legitimately access financial information as a part of their day to day activity, the immune system was able to identify that the behavior as unusual as immediately due to its bespoke understanding of the user's normal pattern of life within the network. They don't normally download this volume of data. It was highly unusual time of day for them to be accessing files, and the location of threat actor's IP address was also anomalous compared to the employee's previous access locations for this particular SaaS service. When the AI analyst automatically investigated this series of unusual events, it was able to illuminate the wider narrative, understanding that each authorized file exposure was part of a connected incident and highlighting the likely credential compromise to the security team. The next business case that I wanted to share is regarding a zero-day ransomware attack, where the initial infection and establishment of C2 has already taken place when Darktrace was installed. When the ransomware became active, Darktrace was able to detect and respond at immediately and autonomously behavior before the attack escalated into a crisis. The first sign of a problem was when the device started to make an anonymously large number of connections to SMB shares in a corporate Dropbox account. It was reading and writing several files, some of which becoming encrypted into a new file extension. Antigena responded within 1 second later, enforcing the device's pattern of life for 5 minutes. This meant that blocking those unusual connections and stopping any further encryption. The device was also seen making an unusually high number of connections to an internal server that it never unusually communicated with, in a likely attempt at lateral movement and spreading the infection. Antigena at this point is highly confident that a ransomware attack is underway, so it effectively quarantined the device for 24 hours, containing the ransomware for a human team to come and clear up. In total, only 4 files were lost to the ransomware's encryption. Crucially, this strain of ransomware was not associated with any publicly known indicator or compromise, such as blacklisted command and control domain or malware file hashes. Darktrace was able to detect this never before seen attack based on purely on its comprehensive understanding of the normal pattern of life for every device and user within the organization. I hope that you find those sharing useful, and I strongly encourage you to visit our booth at the end of this event, where we would be happy to share more information about how Darktrace has helped similar organizations as you in handling and managing disruptive cyber threats in your organization. Thank you.